Touch the leg and welcome to Tibet This Week, a weekly news that features Tibet, His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Central Tibetan Administration. Top news of the week. His Holiness the Dalai Lama grants audience to participating troops of 25th Shoton Festival. His Holiness the Dalai Lama grants special audience to Indian officials. 81 years old Taphun self-immolated in Kirti, Ngaba. Sikyong Penpa Tsering embarks on visit to Tibetan settlements. Speaker attends closing ceremony of 5th General Body Meeting of Tibetan People's Movement for Middle Way Approach. Representative Namgyal Choedup meets Congressman McGovern and former Ambassador Brownback. Office of Tibet, Brazil organizes talk on Tibet arts and culture for students. Central Tibetan Administration appoints new representatives in South Africa and Belgium. Tibet Bureau Geneva receives Enes Kanter freedom. 25th Shoton Festival begins at Tibetan Institute of Performing Arts. Geneva Summit highlights operation by China in Tibet and other regions. Sikyong School, Belgium organizes Children's Culture Evening. His Holiness the Dalai Lama granted an audience to the troops of the 25th Shoton Festival and participants of the Middle Way Approach Conference on Thursday morning at Tsuglakang. Stressing the relevance of Tibetan opera as an intrinsic part of Tibetan culture, His Holiness said he was delighted over the commencement of the Shoton Festival. Speaking on the relevance of the Middle Way policy, His Holiness said, "We cannot resort to violence and banish the Chinese out of our land. However, we can definitely learn to coexist peacefully through the approach of Middle Way policy while we continue to preserve our own identity." On Monday this week, His Holiness the Dalai Lama briefly interacted with Indian officials from Kangra district, Himachal Pradesh, and recalled the early days of his exile in India. His Holiness expressed his deep love and affinity for Dharamshala and thanked the government and public of India, especially the officials and police department of Kangra, for their constant assistance and security.
Actually, on many occasions I mentioned I'm guest of Indian government and stay here very comfortable and complete freedom. So I want to thank local officials. You really provide me this opportunity, completely comfortable.
The audience consists of Deputy Commissioner, Superintendent of Police, Additional Deputy Commissioner, and Additional District Magistrate. Tibet has reported another self-immolation by Taphun, an 81-year-old resident of Kirti, Ngaba County on 27th March. Taphun has reportedly self-immolated in front of a police station located near Kirti Monastery in protest against the Chinese government's oppression. It was reported that the police took Taphun away after his self-immolation attempt, and he was later died in police custody. The 81-year-old Taphun was a resident of Meruma nomadic village in Ngaba County. He was always vocal about China's oppressive policies and his deep reverence for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Last month, just days before Tibetan New Year, a famous Tibetan singer, Tsering, self-immolated in front of Potala Palace. Sources also confirmed another case of self-immolation in Kyugudu, Tibet's traditional Kham province. But the identity currently remains unknown. On Monday this week, the Central Tibetan Administration mourned the self-immolators. Sikyong Penpa Tsering expressed solidarity in honoring their sacrifices for the greater cause of Tibet. Sikyong Penpa Tsering left Dharamshala on Wednesday this week for a week-long official visit to Tibetan communities in Delhi, Odisha, Chhattisgarh and Maharashtra. Sikyong will visit the settlements, schools and monasteries in and around these settlements till 15th April. The Speaker of the Tibetan Parliament in Exile, Khenpo Sonam Temple, addressed the closing ceremony of the 5th General Meeting of Global Tibetan People's Movement for Middle Way Approach as the chief guest at the Hotel Wood Castle, McGovern on Tuesday this week. In his address, Speaker Sonam Temple highlighted the importance of efforts in a movement and the importance of understanding the policy. The speaker also encouraged the attendees to have dialogue with Chinese people on the middle way policy whenever possible. Representative Namgyal Choedup and Secretary Tashi Thundup met Congressman Jim McGovern at his office last Friday. Representative Choedup briefed the congressman about the initiatives taken by the current CTA administration to revive the Sino-Tibetan dialogue, the upcoming Sikyong's official visit to Washington, D.C., and the World Parliamentarian Convention on Tibet. Congressman reaffirmed continued support for the Tibetan cause. Representative Choedup and Secretary Tashi Thundup also met the former Ambassador for International Religious Freedom, Samuel Brownback, who is currently serving as the Vice Chair of IRF Summit 2022. During their meeting with U.S. Special Coordinator for Tibetan Issue Under Secretary Azra Zia's Special Assistant, Ryan Forassi, the representative and the secretary discussed Sikyong Penpa Tsering's upcoming visit to Washington, D.C. At the request of Phayusto Godai, Representative Jigme Tsering delivered a talk to a group of 15 students on Tibetan culture and the activities of Tibet House. Phayusto Godai is a retired diplomat currently serving as a professor of Asian Studies and coordinator of the Center for Asian Civilizations at the Higher Educational Institution in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Representative Jigme Tsering, accompanied by Dr. Shelley Boyle and Thangka artist Mr. Ngawang Londe, gave a brief introduction to Tibetan arts and culture and explained the objectives and programs of Tibet House. The Kasha Secretariat has announced the appointment of Tsering Chunzom as the new representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama in South Africa and Rinzing Chöden Khenkang as the new representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama in Belgium. Tsering Chunzom is currently serving as the additional secretary at the Kasha Secretariat, while Rinzing Chöden Khenkang currently serves as the EU advocacy officer at the Office of Tibet in Brussels, Belgium. The Tibet Bureau Geneva receives Enes Kanter Freedom, celebrated basketball champion and human rights activist on Monday this week. The Tibet Bureau briefed Enes Kanter on the situation inside Tibet and discussed possible joint coordinated efforts to further strengthen human rights and Tibet advocacy. Enes Kanter assured his determined efforts to continue to raise his voice and use his freedom to put the spotlight on human rights abuses by China in Tibet and other regions under China. The Geneva Summit for Human Rights and Democracy recognized Enes Kanter Freedom's heroic efforts to sound the alarm on China's brutal human rights abuses and announced him as the recipient of 2022 Courage Award. The 25th Tibetan Shoton Festival began on Wednesday this week at the Tibetan Institute of Performing Arts in Dharamshala. Sikyong Penpa Tsering attended the inaugural function of the festival as the chief guest along with special guest 7th Kyabje Yongzin Ling Rinpoche. Shri Jambe Wangdi, Chairman of Religion and Cultural Affairs of Arunachal Pradesh, also took part in the event as the guest of honor. In his remarks, Sikyong Penpa Tsering briefly recounted the story of Yogi Thangdong Gyalpo, the founder of Tibetan opera, who is well known for his social works in the 14th century, and appealed the Tibetans to contribute to the preservation and promotion of Tibetan cultures while ensuring facilitations from the Central Tibetan administration. The celebration of Tibetan opera will continue till 13 April with 8 participating Tibetan troupes, 6 from different parts of Tibetan settlements and schools in India, 1 from Nepal, and 1 from the US. On Wednesday this week, political dissidents, representatives of current political prisoners, and freedom activists gathered in Geneva, a global hub for diplomacy and human rights, for the 14th edition of the Geneva Summit for Human Rights and Democracy. A dedicated summit segment on China, titled The Struggle for Human Rights in China, featured Tibetan poet and freedom activist Tenzin Tsundu, founder of Campaign for Uyghurs Roshan Abbas, and policy advisor at Hong Kong Watch Joey Su. Speaking at the summit, Tenzin Tsundu moved the audience by sharing his journey and jail experience in Tibet, highlighted the historical facts of Tibet, expressed his concern over Chinese people who are persecuted and suppressed by their own government. Swiss Tibetan Women Organization, one of the partner NGOs of the Geneva Summit, facilitated Tibetan activist Tenzin Tsundu to speak at the summit. Tsundu is scheduled to undertake Tibet advocacy tours in other parts of Europe. With the ease of COVID-19 restrictions, Sikyong's Jamyang Lopel Sunday School celebrated the 32nd anniversary of Nobel Peace Prize Day, cum Children's Culture Evening event in Brussels. In his address at the event, Representative Tashi Phuntsok, Office of Tibet Brussels, applauded the younger generation's readiness to shoulder the responsibility of preserving Tibet's culture, language, and values. The organization runs 6 schools with over 372 children in Belgium. That is all for this week. See you next time and have a great weekend.